Thank you. I'm Jesse Barnum from 360 Works. I'm going to be talking today about MirrorSync 6. Before I get into my actual content of the session, I need to bring up 2 points that are important. Number one is that MirrorSync 6, I'm demoing it at DevCon. I'm demoing it at the booth. We are not currently shipping it. Our plan, maybe a little optimistically, is to ship in September. So that's the plan at the moment. Second housekeeping point is that I'm used to an hour sessions. I have half an hour. So I'm just going to compensate by speaking twice as fast as normal. And if you've been to my sessions, then you're in for a treat because I start off fast. But I will talk quickly, but I'll try not to cram too much in. I have a ton of material to cover. I ordinarily love taking questions when I talk. It really kind of helps me connect and get really engaged. I just don't have enough time. So after the session, I'll stick around on stage for maybe 5 minutes, and then I'll be at the booth all day today and all day tomorrow. So if I don't get to something that you guys want to see, please come get me at the booth. All right, so same slide. I'm the principal developer for MirrorSync. I also work on SafetyNet. And I'm just going to jump right in with a demo to kind of show you what's going on. And then I'm going to explain kind of afterwards what happened. So, I thought about doing this live, and that was my original plan, but I realized that in half an hour, I really need to speed some stuff up. So I'm going to do this demo. I'm going to tell you right now, I've sped up some of the sync parts. I didn't want you guys to be sitting around waiting 2 minutes for a sync to run in some cases, so I just edited the clips. I'll point out how long the actual sync times are as I'm doing this. So what I'm going to start off with here is I'm demoing MirrorSync 6. And what I'm showing you on screen here is I've got 2 servers. I've got a hub server, which is my laptop, and then I've got a spoke server, which at the time that I recorded this is my wife's laptop, which is lisabarnum.local. So what I'm showing you here is that in this, on the spoke server here, there are no databases hosted currently. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and let this run. And so that's the spoke server. This is my hub server, my laptop here. I've got a bunch of databases on here. The one I'm going to be using for this demonstration is FileMaker Starting Point. This is a free solution given away by Richard Carlton Consulting. And I'm going to click by just starting the sync button. And let me pause here for a moment. I'm going to compare and contrast in several places MirrorSync 5 and MirrorSync 6. MirrorSync 5 is what we ship today. If you did this with MirrorSync 5, you would get an error message because the spoke file does not exist on the spoke database. With MirrorSync 6, our whole kind of like mission statement behind MirrorSync 6 is to make this as convenient and as easy for developers as possible. So what we're going to start off doing is we're going to copy over our creating database copy for spoke. We're going to copy our hub file to our spoke, and during the initial sync, that's going to get automatically written over to the spoke. Then we run our actual sync. It's an initial sync, so there aren't many changes. And so while this is running, let me just point out, thank you to Richard Carlton Consulting for providing their free starting point, and for Jonathan Hogle, who works with Richard Carlton, to prep this database with me and get it all ready. So Starting Point is a free CRM solution that they provide to the FileMaker community. That sync, the actual time there was 189 seconds. I shortened that a little bit to save some time. But that is the entire initial sync process. We copy the file over, we run the sync, and now we're ready to keep going. So now my file is hosted on that remote server. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to do some stuff that is just, for those of you who have never seen, you know, I meant to ask this question. Raise your hand if you have never, if you really don't know that much about MirrorSync or what it does. Oh, more than I thought, actually. Okay, I'll assume the rest of you do. So what I'm going to show you now, and honestly, this is not the focus of my demo. I'm just going to show you basically how sync works. And I don't spend a lot of time on it, but basically I'm creating a new invoice in my hub database. And I also forgot to mention, I'm focusing in this demo on server-to-server syncs. The majority of our MirrorSync customers today use MirrorSync for client-to-server syncing. They use it with FileMaker Go, FileMaker Pro, or a laptop syncing to FileMaker Server. We do have some users also using server-to-server, but today my demo is all about server-to-server. Not that there isn't cool stuff for client-to-server, I'm just choosing to demo server-to-server because I want to talk some more about that specifically. So I'm just going through my hub copy on my database. So this is my hub server. I'm creating an invoice on here. I'm just using the features built into starting point to add a line item and set my quantity. And now I'm going to run the sync, and that's going to copy it over to my spoke. Oh wait, what am I doing? Oh, I'm opening up my spoke database, which is, remember, I don't have that open because it just got created on the spoke when I ran that previous initial sync. So now I'm opening the spoke copy of the database that got pushed over during the initial sync. It's not going to have this new invoice yet because I haven't synced it yet. I created it after I ran the sync, so it doesn't exist over there yet. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to run the sync, and this is going to do exactly what you would expect it to do. It's going to copy over the invoice and the related line items from the hub to the spoke. This has been in MirrorSync for a long time, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with MirrorSync, I'll pause for just a moment and talk about kind of some of the basic features of what MirrorSync does. It does bidirectional syncing. It can sync any number of tables, which is new. And let me pause it here. It can do conflict resolution, so if the same record is modified on both two devices or two or more devices, we have a variety of conflict resolution options, such as a web-based interface or allowing the user or an administrator to select what should win a conflict. We do field merging, which means that if you change the first name on one record and somebody else changes the phone number on the same record, MirrorSync is smart enough to realize that those are two different changes, and it will merge those changes together. It does automatic deletion scanning very efficiently, so if you delete records, you don't need to do anything special like flagging them or running a script or doing custom menu options or anything like that. It'll just detect that very efficiently and delete it from the related record. It handles related records fully well, parent-to-child relationships. It can also sync serial numbers if you're using serial numbers as primary keys. I think we're moving to UUIDs as a community. There's a lot of legacy databases that still use serial numbers as primary keys. Those are fully supported in MirrorSync. I'm going to keep moving. I'm happy to talk more at the booth about the basics of kind of what MirrorSync is and what it does if you guys have questions, but I want to keep moving here. So what we're seeing here is that sync worked. So now I've got that invoice and the related line items on both databases, the hub and the spoke. If you've used MirrorSync before, this is not shocking. This is what you're used to seeing. What's coming up next, though, is kind of cool, which is that I am now going to make some development changes to my system. Notice that in this system, I have, and it's a little small and hard to see up there. In fact, I can't see it. I have 25 tables in this database. And if you've used Starting Point before, now I can see. If you've used Starting Point before, you might notice there's a row of icons missing from the bottom here, because what I've done is I'm simulating that this is let me back up a few seconds here. I'm backing up too slowly, sorry. So this version of Starting Point doesn't have some of the features that the full version does. It doesn't have timekeeping and to-do and stuff like that. So I am going to now make some development changes to my hub database. This is where we get into some exciting stuff that's new in MirrorSync 6. And in order to do that, I'm using our 360 deploy product. So what I'm doing essentially here, just to kind of give you an idea, is I've got this version of Starting Point that doesn't have all those features or all those tables. I have a version of Starting Point on my own local laptop that is my development version. I'm going to use a different product of ours, which is 360 Deploy, to take that development version that I have with all the full set of tables and all the full set of features, and I'm going to deploy that onto the hub database. So MirrorSync and Deploy work very, very well together. So I'm going to let this keep running. So this is uploaded to the server right now, and it will finish in just a moment. In full disclosure, I sped that up a little bit. It normally takes another 20 seconds or so, but I'm trying to save time. So 360 Deploy is finished. Now, if I open up my hub version of my database, you will see that I not only have some new additional buttons on my home screen, I have additional tables. So wait for this to catch up. Okay, so we've got these additional tables. We'll pretend that I just added them in my development copy. And so we've added those, and if I go to my field definitions, notice that I have, 31 tables. So I've now added tables and I've added fields, but I haven't told MirrorSync about that. MirrorSync does not know about the tables and fields and the layouts and things like that that just got added and modified. So let's talk about what needs to happen now. in order for this to work with MirrorSync. So let me pause for a minute and talk about, oh, sorry. What I want to show here is I'm going to open up the Spoke version of the database, which is the version I've been syncing with, which obviously does not have that new stuff. It doesn't have those buttons, and it doesn't have those tables. So if I was using MirrorSync 5 right now, this is a great product, but if I was using MirrorSync 5 and I wanted to make this sync, here's what I would need to do. I would need to create a new layout for every table that I just added. I would need to add all of my fields to those layouts. I would then need to go into my MirrorSync configuration utility. I would need to edit it, step through every screen. At the end of the process, I would copy the script steps. I would switch to my solution, go to Manage Scripts, go to my MirrorSync script, delete them all, paste them all, click OK. Then I would download a copy of that file. Then I would upload a copy of that file to the Spoke. Then I would run my sync and it would work. So that's what I would do in MirrorSync 5. So with MirrorSync 6, what I'm going to do is I am just going to create 5 new layouts, and they're blank layouts. There's a layout here for each of the new tables that I just added. For instance, that sync timesheet line items, which is 5th from the end, is a new layout. The layouts in MirrorSync 6 no longer need to have any fields on them. We just assume that you want to sync all the fields in that table, so your layouts can actually be blank now. So it's very, very quick and easy to do that. Once you've added those layouts, MirrorSync knows that it needs to sync them. Now I'm going to create a new record in a table that MirrorSync doesn't know about, the task database. I'm just doing a new task here. And again, this is not in my Spoke database right now. And what I'm going to do now is that if you've used the auto update, here, let me get to a little bit farther in my demo here. So how many people in here have used the auto update feature that was added in MirrorSync 4? Okay, maybe a third. So in MirrorSync 4, we added an auto update feature that if you go into the MirrorSync table, which is added as part of the configuration, and you change the database version field to anything, then MirrorSync on the next successful sync will replace the offline copy on that mobile file with the new version of the file from the server. It's extremely convenient. What's new in MirrorSync 6 is that that also works now for server-to-server syncs. So I'm going through and I'm going to change my database version to version 2. So now that's everything that I need to do in MirrorSync 6. I have done all the configuration necessary in order for the sync to work. So I'm going to go ahead and run my sync now. And if you look closely at the status, creating database copy for Spoke. So what it just did is it compared those database versions. It saw that it's a newer version than what's on the Spoke. It copies the hub file onto the Spoke, does not yet replace the Spoke file because the Spoke file may have data living in it that is unsynced, that we don't have yet. We don't want to lose that data. So we run our sync, and at the end of the sync, assuming it's successful, we then take that file off of the Spoke database, we move it into an archive folder, and we replace it with the new version of the database that has the new tables and the new fields. So that finished. The actual time for that is 79 seconds. I sped that up a little bit for our demo. So now I'm going to show you this file that I'm going to reopen my Spoke database. And what you're going to see now when I open it, presumably, I'm cheating, spoiler alert, it's a video. What you're going to see is the same tables and buttons and stuff that I added in my hub file because I've just replaced my Spoke database with my hub. And it has my data in it because of course it does because I just copied it over. What I haven't proven to you yet is that it syncs. I've proven that I can copy a file from hub to Spoke. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this table that we never told MirrorSync about, didn't exist at the time that we configured MirrorSync in our solution. We're going to create a new record there in this new table. Now I'm going to go ahead and run my final sync. And then this record will now sync back to the hub because what happens is MirrorSync will check all of the tables and all the fields very efficiently by comparing the hashes of the tables in the FileMaker table schema. And now when I look at my hub database, there is my new record. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you guys. So just to recap what we just saw MirrorSync reconfigure itself by automatically detecting all the new tables and fields in your solution, take care of all the file management between your hub database and your spoke database, and essentially make it to the point where you have almost no effort required to keep your hub database in sync with your spoke database. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump back to slides. So before I talk about I want to recap some things that MirrorSync 5 already does, because not everybody knows everything that MirrorSync 5 does. I think most of the people here already know that you can do client to server syncing with MirrorSync. Everything I just demoed for you also works with client to server. So if you add new tables and add new fields to a mobile solution, if you go on your hub database and you add new tables and new fields, as long as you remember to create a new blank layout for every new table you add, you don't need to do anything for new fields. For new tables, you just need to add a blank layout, and the next time that the users get a copy of the file, whether it's using the auto update thing that I demoed, or by using a download URL, or by just getting a copy from Dropbox or whatever, MirrorSync will detect that it no longer matches the configured set of tables and fields, and it will automatically add those to the sync. So that everything will work for client to server as well. Another use case that less people use is FileMaker Server to a SQL database, or my personal favorite, which is DynamoDB. This is really, really useful if you want to create a high volume web application. If you need a web application that is going to be more than what FileMaker's able to handle natively, a very powerful solution for that is to sync it to a SQL database or to Dynamo and then build a web interface on that. Part of the reason I like Dynamo, in case you're not familiar with it, is the database that runs Amazon.com. It can handle tens of millions of transactions per second. It's insane. And furthermore, it has no schema. You don't need to assign fields and tables in DynamoDB. They get created automatically on the fly, which fits perfectly with what I'm showing you in MirrorSync 6. If you add new tables and fields to your FileMaker database and you sync, you don't need to go to a MySQL database and remember to add fields and alter table and that kind of stuff. It just gets added magically to DynamoDB. So Dynamo is a really powerful way to kind of mirror your FileMaker server to a very high performance engine that you can use to build a web application on. A much less used application, but we have at least 2 customers doing it that I know of, SQL to SQL syncs. MirrorSync is not fundamentally tied to FileMaker. We have at least one customer who's syncing Microsoft SQL Server in Azure to an Oracle database. That's fully supported. And then also FileMaker Server to other database types. We support Redshift, which is an AWS service, as well as Salesforce. So FileMaker will do full bidirectional syncing with Salesforce for tables and fields that you configure. What I want to talk about next is really cool things that you can do now with MirrorSync 6 that were possible in 5. In fact, I've demoed them before. They were just a hassle. It's no longer a hassle to do this stuff. If you saw my DevCon session last year, you saw me demonstrate clustering. And that's where we had everybody on iPads like connected to the. I don't have time to do that full demo, but I'm just going to talk about what it is. So if you saw my demo last year, you already know about this. If you didn't, what this is talking about is clustering with the load balancer. So what you do is you have multiple copies of FileMaker Server running on multiple instances. In my case, I use Amazon for all my deployments, so I'm going to assume we're talking about Amazon, but it could be an on-premise server as well if you have a hardware router that supports load balancing. So in the case of Amazon, I'm running on 2 Amazon instances, FileMaker Server and FileMaker Server. I do a bidirectional sync in between them, and then we have a load balancer. And the load balancer is what the users connect to. You give them an address like myfmserver.mycompany.com, which actually points to the load balancer. The load balancer will then basically put half of the people on one server and half of the people on the other server. So each server is only handling half of the load. Or if you have 3, 4, 5 servers, each server is only handling a third, fourth, or fifth of the load. So you get immediate, significant performance improvements from clustering. Furthermore, and perhaps even more importantly, if either one of the servers goes down, either for an unscheduled reason or to do a software update, the load balancer will automatically detect that and route all of the traffic to the other server or servers that are still running. You don't even need to tell the load balancer that you're taking it down. It'll detect that automatically and reroute all that traffic to the functional, healthy server. So the load balancer is a really cool concept, especially when you consider that you can actually do live software updates on your production server and not disrupt user traffic. It's kind of crazy to think about. So here's another scenario. FileMaker server to server warm backup. This is a more traditional, less experimental kind of thing that is easy to understand. The concept is simple. Your users all connect to FileMaker server 1. Instead of a bidirectional sync, you set up a one-way sync from that hub server to the spoke server. You run it every minute, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever works best, whatever doesn't put too much load on your FileMaker server. And now you know that if FileMaker server suddenly dies for any reason, the file gets corrupt, or anything along those lines happen, instead of rebooting that server, reopening it, and waiting for the consistency check to run. I have one client that the consistency check on their databases takes 3 hours to run. And they have 300 live production users, and it's catastrophic for them when that happens. So rather than reboot FileMaker server and wait for it to come up and hope that the files don't need to be recovered and hope that you don't need to go to last night's backup, you simply repoint the IP address from server 1 to server 2, and now all of your users are up and running again in 5 minutes instead of hours, and you're not freaking out wondering if your files are corrupted or damaged. So that's the warm backup. This is one that we have several people using currently today with MirrorSync 5. It's going to get a lot easier now with MirrorSync 6. This is the geographic distribution model, and essentially this just simply means running multiple file servers, but instead of in the same data center, they're running in different data centers around the world. AWS now has 14 regions around the world. They just recently added a Middle East data center. So you could theoretically have, if you're using AWS, 14 servers running all around the world. This DNS lookup is worth pointing out because it's using a feature of Amazon. Amazon's DNS service is called Route 53. So with Route 53, it has what is called a DNS latency feature, where what it will do is from anywhere around the world, if I've got a server in the States and I have a server in Europe and somebody's connecting from Australia, it's not really clear which server they should go to. So what you do is you give everybody the same name for the server. When they go to do that name, it'll do a DNS lookup to Amazon. Amazon measures the latency between where they are in each one of the servers, and it will return them the IP address of whichever server is closest to them. So you could have a potentially worldwide or countrywide network of servers. Use MirrorSync to keep them all in sync with each other, all the same data sets, and then use like a service such as Route 53 to direct your users to the closest and fastest server. The last one I'm going to talk about is FileMaker server-to-server disaster recovery. This is the exact same thing as the warm backup, with the one distinction being that it's in a different region. So you are not only protected against your server going down, you are also protected against the data center going down. So if the entire data center goes down, if you're like a HIPAA company, one of our large customers does medical transportation, and it's really bad if they go down. So in that case, they need a disaster recovery plan so that if there is an entire data center loss, everything will continue to run in the other region. All of these things that I'm showing you could be done with MirrorSync 5, but as you saw, it's a lot of work in MirrorSync 5. It is almost no work in MirrorSync 6. So that brings up licensing. I don't know, a lot of you probably know this, some of you may not. When you buy FileMaker Server, it comes with 3 copies of FileMaker Server. What are you doing with copies number 2 and 3? So you've already got the licensing that you need from FileMaker in order to do clustering and replication and geographic distribution. So these are all things that I've demoed. I just want to do a quick recap because I know I talk quickly and I want to make sure that I don't gloss over anything. You saw how the server-to-server initial sync transferred the file over. That's new in MirrorSync 6. You saw how the auto update feature now also works for server-to-server syncs, not just client-to-server syncs. You saw that the new tables and the fields automatically get detected without needing to reconfigure and run through and recopy and paste script steps. The script is now static. You copy and paste the script one time when you configure MirrorSync. You never need to go back and change it unless you install a new version of MirrorSync that has a better script. But you don't need to recopy and paste it because of any changes to your solution. There is now an express setup option. I don't have time to actually demo the setup. I am going to be doing some demos at the booth if anybody would like to see. The express setup skips over the last half of the configuration because we used to ask you, what's your primary key, what's your modification timestamp, your creation timestamp, your writebacks, your foreign keys. We can auto-detect those much more reliably now than we used to. We rewrote how we auto-detect all that stuff, and it's very reliable now, so we don't even ask you anymore, If you want to pick the custom option, you can, and verify that MirrorSync auto detection is picking up what you think it should be picking up. And that's the last point too. We've really improved the metadata detection of keys and fields. Some of this stuff I didn't talk about, so let me spend a little bit of time on this. Number one, we are now using the data API exclusively. We no longer support XML or XDBC. It felt like we were always in a troubleshooting mode where you ran into a bug in XML, try switching to JDBC. Oh, JDBC can't handle text larger than 64 characters, 64 kilobytes, switch to XML. Oh, you need faster WAN performance, switch to XML. Oh, you need faster inserts, switch to JDBC. So with the data API, we feel like we're able to get most of the best of these two things. The data API gives us the wide area network speed that we had with XML and we're missing with JDBC. It gives us the record streaming features that we had in XDBC, but we're missing in XML. So we feel like we're kind of getting our cake and eating it too by using the data API. We use very, very little bandwidth on the data API. You're not going to notice a significant spike in bandwidth usage from using MirrorSync, and I can explain why if you want to talk more at the booth. We've rewritten everything having to do with photos and container syncing. That whole process is gone and has been rewritten. We no longer base 64 encode any photos or binary data, which makes it 37% smaller. We use the new features that were added in FileMaker 16 with the insert from URL curl options to do an HTTP binary put. So we're pushing the binary data as fast as your throughput will allow it with no overhead of base 64 encoding. We now support unlimited tables. Where's Johan? There he is, yay! So we now support unlimited tables. That wasn't really anything I did. It's just a side effect of the fact that we no longer have to copy and paste the script steps. So what was stopping us before was nothing about MirrorSync. What was stopping us from before is that because the script was customized to your solution, when you hit roughly 60 to 80 tables, the script would get too big to fit in FileMaker. We would hit the limit of 32,768 script steps. So now the script never changes, and so kind of by extension, we don't really care if you want to sync 500 tables. Speaking of many tables, we rewrote the algorithm for detecting which tables have changed. So there used to be about a half of a second delay for each table that you were syncing, whether there were any changes in that table or not, so that we could check and see if that table had any changes. So for a 30 table sync, you might have 10 to 15 seconds of overhead just checking to see if those tables changed. We've rewritten that now, and it's generally 1 to 3 seconds now. I've tested it with the starting point with 31 tables, and it's about 1.5 seconds to check that. So that's been made much, much faster. So I think it will be much more inviting for your users to sync frequently without getting like a 10, 20, 30 second delay. We are using the call script by name. So we do require FileMaker 17. That allows us to make it much easier for us to support customizations that you want to do. It also allows us to share the single MirrorSync script among multiple configurations. If you used MirrorSync in the past, you know that it can support multiple different sync configs. So maybe you want to run a bunch of one-way syncs during the day and then a bidirectional sync of all records at night. MirrorSync supports that with multiple configurations. By using the call script by name feature, we can make it so that you have one script per configuration and they all share a single large MirrorSync script. We've also improved field level validation. So previously with MirrorSync, if you had a required field or calculated validation or anything like that and you tried to sync it, you would just get an error message that says an error 507 occurred or 509. This record couldn't be written. Now it'll tell you this value could not be written to this field, and it makes it much, much easier for you to troubleshoot that. We get a lot of support tickets from people who feel like it's a bug in MirrorSync. They're like, my record's not writing. We're like, there's some validation that's failing. They're like, what is it? We don't know. So now MirrorSync will tell you, and you can not send an email to support360works.com. We're happy to help with support, and it really helps us. If any of you, I know a lot of you guys, I know a lot of you have been using MirrorSync for a while. I know a lot of you have reported issues to us. MirrorSync 6 is a culmination of a lot of bug reports and tickets, so when you report issues to us, we really pay attention, and we really, really make sure that we get it into the product, so that's a lot of stuff. The demo configuration, I do not have time to do a configuration of how the setup process works. I will tell you it takes 3 minutes and 40 seconds. That's how long it took me to set up the FM starting point demo. I would love to show that to you, but since I don't have time here, come and get me at the booth afterwards. I'll show you that little video. I'll talk through it with you. I'll answer any questions you have. It took, I'm not counting the 8 minutes that it took to create 41 or 31 blank layouts. So that took me a little bit, but then the actual MirrorSync configuration took 3 minutes and 40 seconds. I have a few users of MirrorSync that I'd like to talk about because they're cool. So one is IMS. IMS is one of our first and largest customers of MirrorSync. They have 2,500 devices that they use. They're in the state of Ohio. They've created a vertical market application used by first responders that they sell on the App Store very successfully. They're doing quite well. And so these first responders, these paramedics and firefighters, they go and they rescue people, and when they're coming back in a truck or an ambulance, they're driving in and out of cellular reception, so they're filling out their patient data on an offline copy. They sync it when they get to a hospital. Their typical sync time is 4 to 6 seconds to run that sync. Next one I'll talk about is the Loop Commission. This was done in conjunction with Soliant. Soliant built a system for the Loop Commission. They're an agency in Africa that goes to remote villages in the bush and does optometry. They could not do any of it without some way to sync their database. And so Soliant recommended MirrorSync, and that has been working really well, and that customer is extremely happy. A very similar kind of story, which most of you have heard about, is the YWAM story. This was spearheaded by Marty Thomason of Gearbox Solutions, who's also in Atlanta like we are. Marty and I are friends, and so I have a lot of fun talking to him about this project. And so what they do is they take a big hospital ship with a bunch of medical students and professionals on board, and they go to remote villages in Papua New Guinea that have no internet, no Wi-Fi, and no health care. And so they go in there and they do a wide range of services with everybody, and then they get back to their ship and they sync it all. This is an interesting one in particular because it's a multi-level sync. They do iPads and phones in the villages. Those go to laptops. The laptops then go back onto the ship and sync to a server, and then the server on the ship actually syncs to another server on shore. So they've got a complex kind of multi-tier hierarchical sync setup. And right now, Marty stays up all night long doing deployments when versions change. So he and I are both very, very excited about MirrorSync 6. And then the last thing is that I got this from Nico Rani. Nico, you want to wave? There's Nico. He just sent me this like the day before DevCon, and it really made me happy. This is with MirrorSync 5. He says we're using MirrorSync at 360 deploy, just like I showed you guys, for almost a year, and it did an amazing job. They have a server in Switzerland. That's their hub server, and then they're syncing to spokes in Canada, United States, Vietnam, and China, and it wouldn't, Nico tells us it would not be possible without 360 deployed MirrorSync. So we're really happy about that, and we think it's going to save Nico a ton of time with MirrorSync 6 compared to what he's doing right now. This is my last slide. I know I'm running a little tight on time. I'm sorry I'm going over 2 minutes over. But MirrorSync 6, as I mentioned at the beginning, it will not ship here at DevCon. We are hoping to ship it in September. I almost said October. We're hoping to ship it in September. We do have our DevCon discount this week. So if you'd like to get MirrorSync 6, let me explain a little bit about how our licensing works. When you buy MirrorSync, you're getting MirrorSync and you're getting all the updates that come out in the next 12 months after you purchase it. So you can actually get our DevCon discount on MirrorSync 6 by buying MirrorSync 5 at the show this week. And the server-to-server pricing for FileMaker Server to FileMaker Server is $1,600. That is a one-time cost. It's not an annual cost. You own that license in perpetuity. We have an optional maintenance program that each year after the first, you can renew for 25% of your original purchase cost, and you'll get all the updates and maintenance that comes for the following 12 years after. If you choose not to do the maintenance program, you still own MirrorSync forever. It will work forever. It'll just stay at the version that you have without updates. Server-to-server syncing. So client-to-server syncing, we include 10 client devices in our portfolio bundle. The server is sold separately. It wouldn't make sense because the pricing on server is about the same as the pricing on the portfolio. So that is sold separately. We do have a special deal. Where's Cheris? Cheris, wave. So if you're an FBA member, and if you would like to use MirrorSync for your own in-house use, not for client use and not for resale, but for your own in-house use, we have a special FBA portfolio bundle that does include all of our products as well as server-to-server syncing with MirrorSync. If you would like to use that for your own purposes, talk to Cheris afterwards. It is only available to FBA members, and we have very special pricing on that, so you can talk to her about that if you're interested in that. The client to server syncing pricing ranges from $8 to $95 per device. That is, again, a one-time cost with an optional 25% annual renewal to get new versions, and that's based on however many devices you have. And none of these prices include our 15% DevCon discount, so that will be applied to all of this. I know I'm a little bit over time. Thank you guys very much for being patient. I will be at the booth for the rest of the day, today and tomorrow. I would love to see you guys. Thank you very much.